Hello and welcome to another episode of Geography Made Easy. In this series, we try to make difficult geographical concepts easy. Today, we will be starting with the CUET syllabus. This is for the undergraduate course. So, if any student who wishes to give the entrance exam for the central universities, this is the common entrance exam test, and I will be trying to cover the syllabus to my short videos. So today we are starting with the population part, which is people, and I will be dividing the topics into more smaller parts and components so that it becomes easier for us to grasp the concepts. In this video, we will be talking about world population, distribution, density, and growth. Today we will be just concentrating on the distribution and density part. So the first question which comes to our mind is, what is the meaning of population? Population is the number of persons or people residing in a particular place. But we have to understand that population is a measure of, here we are talking about human population, but population can also be measured for other species, other living species as well. For example, we can have the population count for a particular bird species, or we can have the population count of the tiger in India, as well as the population count of the number of bacteria living in one drop of water. However, here we will be just concentrating on human population. The first concept that we will be concerned about is population distribution. The population distribution is described or defined as the spread or the amount of population which is spread over a geographical space or place over the world. So here we are taking into consideration the spatial distribution, that is, in which part of the world how much population is present and in which part of the world less number of people are living. So population distribution is more concerned with the spatial patterns of in which part of the world the population is more, in which part of the world the population is less. This concept will be explained with the help of the following diagram. In this diagram, we see that we have the world population with certain countries represented. This is the total population. So we have China. This is a graph of the population distribution, which is not of this current year 2023. Hence, we have to right now refer to this until and unless the government brings out the census data, because we know now that India has surpassed China in its total population. We find that China and India have some of the highest total populations, followed by USA. Then we have Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan, and Japan, Russian Federation, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and the rest of the world is considered the total population of 41.2% in the other parts of the world. So the majority of the population is contained between the countries of China and India, and we see in the third place, US, the population is much less. So we will obviously see that here the distribution of population in Asia is more concentrated than in the US. So moving from population distribution, we will move into the concept of population density. And population density has a much more sensible kind of usage when we are trying to describe or understand about population. So population density is a ratio or is a formula. There is a formula to calculate that. That is, it helps us, it tells us about the number of persons in per unit area. So if a country is very large and the number of persons living in the country is also very large, we are going to divide the number of persons living in that country divided by the total area of the country, which will give us what is the density of population, or how many people are living in per square kilometer or per inch or per mile or per centimeter of the ground. So the formula in this case is, so this is a statistical representation. So whereas we have seen that in population distribution, we were looking or dealing with whole numbers, total numbers, the population density gives us a more holistic and a more realistic picture of the actual population situations in the world. So population density is measured by the total population. It can be for a state, for a district, for any administrative unit, divided by total area of that particular unit. So it can be a gram panchayat, it can be a village, it can be a basti, it can even be a building, and we will be taking the number of people living divided by the total area of that particular place. This population density is measured in persons per square kilometer and gives us a very good understanding of the spatial variations of population in any country. Or if you want to compare the different population densities of different countries, we can go for it in a very proper manner if we study population density. So this is a graphical representation where we can see that most of the people, if we look at the area or the geographical entities of the continents, we can see that most of the people are concentrated in China, in India and Southeast Asia and Europe. Also we see quite high population densities in Africa. Compared to these countries, if we look at North America, the population density is low in Canada, USA, and Mexico and the other countries. Similarly, it is lesser in both the Americas. If we look at Australia, on the other hand, the population density is even less, and in the middle of the continent, we see that there is vacant land. Similarly, if we look at the places which are the hostile parts of the world, we will see that these places have not been represented with number of people, implying that population density here is much less. So distribution of population is very uneven, and as I have already discussed, that world population is maximum in Asia, Europe and Africa, having highest concentration of populations compared to both the Americas, Latin America and North America. We will be soon discussing the reasons behind such disparities which exist in the population distribution. Let us look at a few figures. These are the top 10 most densely populated countries in the world. These are small countries. The areas are also very small. So Singapore is ranking as the second country. It's a tiny country. The per kilometer persons living is very high, which is 8019. Similarly, here we are looking at all the countries which have small areas. So we have Singapore, Bahrain, Maldives, Malta, Bangladesh, Vatican City and others. But if we look at the total population, we will see that countries like India, countries like China will have a much better score in this case. Let us look at the density of population. This is a map which is showing the density of population of the world, and we see that some of the most densest populations are represented with the with the dark maroon, followed by countries such as India. These countries also have pretty high populations, and some of the lowest populations are the Russian Federation, Canada, Greenland, Australia. So this gives us an idea about the population density. So this is from the data of 2022. Now we will be discussing quickly about the factors which affect distribution and density of population. The first and the foremost factor here is the terrain or the topography of the land. We see that population will be denser or the numbers will be higher in places where the terrain is flat, that is in the plains. Whereas if we look at hilly areas where we have uneven terrain, we have slopes where it's difficult to build houses, it is difficult to practice agriculture, we will see that the population density will be low. The second most important factor is climate, very, very important. Favorable climate will increase the chances of people wanting to live in a particular area. So wherever we see that favorable climate is present, we will see more number of people agglomerating in that area. So climate plays a very important role. We will not see people living in Antarctica or Greenland because of the harsh climatic conditions, or in the middle of say Gobi Desert because of again harsh climatic conditions. The third point here is soil, which is another important point, because here we have to associate soil with agriculture. Agricultural practice or pursuits gives us food, and obviously this leads to a lot of people entering the agrarian economy or starting farming, and hence we see that all farming communities have high density of population. This is a historical reason why population density is high in places where the soil is fertile. Some of the most densest places in the world is the Ganga plain in India, because of the fertile soil which supports good farming conditions. So that is one of the reasons why we see high density of population in this area. The fourth point here is water bodies, and this especially works in case of rivers, lakes, and in fact, we even see that in very harsh climatic conditions, water bodies attract population. So population distribution or density is very high around water bodies. Example here is the oasis. Apart from that, we are talking about rivers. So we know that all civilizations, all ancient civilizations, they have grown around rivers. So that is also one of the reasons why we see that water bodies attract high density of population. The fifth factor, and from there onwards we have the factors which also attract population, is mineral resources. Places having good mineral resources, we see that a lot of people tend to agglomerate in that area. Mining activities, they generate employment, and obviously that is one reason why people would like to get employed. So because of the employment generation facilities which are associated with the mining, we see that people start living in that area and townships later develop. We have many examples from the world. We in India we have the Jharkhand belt, we have the Odisha belt where we have the coal mining belts. Similarly, in all parts of the world, in the coal mining areas, we see that such towns and cities have got developed because of the mineral resources. Obviously, mineral resources and industries which follows from mineral resources actually is where we see that because of industrialization, and which leads to the increase in opportunities, we see that a lot of people come and agglomerate and make cities and towns and settle down where there are any number of industries. Industries can develop when there is a good transport system. So transport networks also lead to the high density populations compared to places which are remote, which are not well connected. So we see in the hilly areas where it is difficult to build and maintain roads, population density is very less. Here climate is also playing and terrain is also playing an important role. So we see that the factors here don't always occur independently, but they are related to one another. The final factor here is urbanization. Urban centers, they attract more people because of the economic opportunities, and slowly more and more density of population in these urban areas increase. This phenomena is known as urbanization, where the hinterland area of urban areas becomes slowly converted into urban areas with the change in land use. So this is also another reason, another factor, very important factor, where we see that our growth of urban areas has led to the increase in density of population in those areas. Example, all the metropolitan cities of the world are have very high density of population. Example, Paris, New York, London, New Delhi. They are all because of the urbanization process, which is continuing constantly. With this, I end this part. In the next part, I will be discussing about more about population growth and the ways in which population growth can be calculated. So if you have any doubts and questions, or if you would like me to uh, cover some part of the syllabus, please let me know in the chat section, and please share this video with your friends if you find this useful. Thank you for listening. See you in part 2.